Okay, so this is a test. This is only a test. We are testing a new audio application, so we're not going to talk about the leftovers today. It's Ethan. I'm here with Benji. Say hey, Benji.
Hello.
And we are going to talk about an episode of Lost because Benji's watching Lost for the first time. We're going to talk about a famous episode called The Constant. I watched it last night. I enjoyed it. I've seen it many times. Uh, Benji, you said you had to watch 2 episodes before this to catch up, so we could talk about this one. I know the
Mhm.
one before it was Egg Town,
Mhm.
um, and I kind of remember what happens in that. What was the one before that you had to watch?
The one before that was called The Economist, and that
I
was
don't
like
want to say too much. I really
Mhm.
am trying not to go past anything, my knowledge past the constant. Is The Economist a Saeed episode?
Yeah, yeah, it is. It's like a Saeed, but future Saeed.
Future side. Okay, so we're in flash forward times.
Mhm.
Okay, and did he kill someone on a golf course? Spoiler alert.
Indeed, he did.
Okay, good, good. Okay, um, and Eggtown is Kate in court
Yep.
after she gets back
Mhm.
with, and at the end it's all very dramatical, and she's holding this huge, massive baby, and says,
Yeah.
"Hi, Aaron." The baby's
Hi,
so
Aaron.
big, right?
Mhm.
Um, and then you watch The Constant.
The Constant. Yeah.
All right, so The Constant is pretty self-contained, right?
Mhm.
And it's not flash forwards; it's all flashbacks, kind of,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Um, I did some research on The Constant, and I didn't do too much, but I did. The one thing I found out is one of the episodes. Every season, there's a handful of episodes that doesn't have a previously on Lost,
Mhm.
and this didn't have one because my copy I turned it on, and I went to the internet to look up the previously on, and they're like, this one doesn't have one. So I just want to know from you, how were you feeling after Eggtown?
Um, how was I feeling?
Yeah, man.
Um,
That's what we do here on the Leftovers Chat podcast. We talk about our
uh,
feelings.
it's, I mean, I was excited to watch more. So
Okay, how did you feel about Kate and the baby and Aaron? Were you surprised by that? Like, were you shocked that that was Aaron?
Yeah, I was because obviously we'd been led into thinking at a few points in kind of this season and the season before, maybe, that Kate, there's a possibility she's pregnant. So flash forward to the future, and everybody's talking about Kate's baby, and you sort of put two and two together and say, yeah, okay, Kate's baby, that makes sense. They were talking about that. And we know that there's been a time jump in between them being on the island and them being in this future place. So it was all, it wasn't really flagging up any, uh, flags for me
Did you have
at
any?
all. So it slipped under my radar, and then at the end it kind of delivers that sucker punch.
Did you have any feelings like? I know at the end of season 3, the last episode that we talked, that we have to go back through the Looking Glass episode. I know she throws this line out to Jack. She's like, "I have to get back to him. He's waiting for me." A lot of people thought that might have been Sawyer, but it's kind of confirmed now that that was Aaron, right?
It does.
I think it
Oh,
confirms
oh,
that she was talking about
yeah. When
Aaron.
you say I have to get back, he's waiting. Sorry. When you said when she said I have to go back, he's waiting. You mean not go back to the island, but go back to the house?
Yeah, yeah. She said she was like, "Jack, I can't talk
In
to you."
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
in contrast to Jack's, I have to go back, as in go back to the island.
I understand that. But yeah, one of the things she was yelling at him was, "I have to go back. He's waiting for me."
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lot of speculation if that was Sawyer, if it was someone else. So the questions we're kind of left with, and I know it has nothing to do with the episode The Constant, but I'm kind of trying to get myself back into the lost frame of mind here for a second. Um, uh, the questions are like, how did she get off the island? How
Hmm.
did Aaron get off the island? Where's Claire? Right? And those are kind of the questions at the end that episode one.
Hmm. Yeah, and I mean another couple of questions running through my mind over the last two episodes are, um, who are the other members of the Oceanic Six? Because I believe so far we've had revealed Hurley makes it off the island. There's an episode on him. Jack, obviously, Kate, Saeed, and then that leaves me with two. And I don't think I missed any. I might have. So my
Uh,
guess at the moment would be possibly Desmond, and
but
Sawyer. I say because I hope it is Sawyer, but I don't know.
Desmond wasn't on the flight.
That's a good point.
Yeah,
That's a very good point.
and does Aaron not count as a sixth as a member?
Ah, yeah, no, he does, doesn't he?
And I'm
Ah, he
literally
stole
telling
Sawyer's spot.
you that
Hmm.
I don't remember right now. I'm searching my brain, and I don't know if
Well,
they're
don't,
counting Aaron or not.
don't tell me when you find out the answer.
I'm just asking questions because I don't know.
No, it's yeah. I mean, well, I don't know if Aaron, like you were saying, Desmond can't be one of the Oceanic Six because he wasn't on the flight. Aaron, he was on the flight, but Claire was on the flight, so I don't know.
Yeah,
Like Aaron wasn't born by that point, so
I have to know for my own knowledge. Okay,
okay.
before we move on. Okay, so because there's holes in my brain, and there's if anyone from Lost is out there who is screaming at me right now, or um, the members are.
What?
I'm not
Okay,
going to read them. I'm not going to read them, but for my own
had me
brain,
for a minute.
for my own brain, I know now. All right, that's right. Okay, I'm all good. Cool. That was going to drive me crazy. You ready to get into it?
Yeah, I mean that's I don't know how strict this is going to be. I think it's more of a free form open mic style session. I didn't. I mean, I watched the episode, made a couple notes, but I didn't really dig deep into any of this stuff. I just figured we'd play it as it
I have a feeling
comes.
it'll be a mix of both because I
Okay.
watched it too. Because I'm just gonna like say a scene, and then we'll talk about it for a second if you got anything to say. All right.
Okay. Hmm.
So there's no previously on, and we open in the helicopter, and something snaps right in Frank is flying, and something snaps in Desmond, and he starts to freak out.
Hmm.
I mean, nothing really to say there. We don't know what's going on at all yet.
Wait, doesn't he only start to freak out after he jumps between?
Um, yeah, I guess the freaking out starts because he flashes,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? And we already had the episode called "Flashes Before Your Eyes,"
Yeah, we did.
where
So.
Desmond leads Charlie. Spoilers, R.I.P. Um, hashtag not Penny's boat. Um, and he sees that, so we know he sees things sometimes. So it's
Hmm.
not really shocking to me. It's interesting, but it's not like shocking that he flashes back. It's kind of
Hmm.
jarring that he's flashing back and not forward to the Royal Scots Regiment.
Uh-huh. And my brain was kind of fuzzy on Desmond's storyline at this point because I've been watching Lost over quite a while, a fair number of months, and I sort of take breaks in between occasionally, and so I feel like it's been a while since I watched that Desmond, if you like, origin story episode. Uh, you might be the same. You might not be too clear on the details, but Desmond and Penny, um, him joining the army, that comes after he fails to ask Penny to marry him.
Yeah. I think because he leaves her because he
Hmm.
doesn't feel like he's good enough or whatever it is, right?
Hmm.
And then joins the Royal Scots because when he gets out and during this episode to find Faraday and then find her, it's like a fresh after a breakup. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
But wasn't he in jail at
And
some point?
I know, yeah, because I was remembering he was in jail, and then also he'd spoken to either her or her dad before he took the boat trip. And now I'm thinking it must have been her dad that he talked to, because later on in the episode there's this whole thing where they haven't spoken for 8 years between where he's flashing to and where he is now.
Right.
So, but obviously he's been on the boat trip in that time frame between those 8 years. So if they haven't spoken from then until now, maybe it was the father that he was, because
And
wasn't the father like blocking him, and then that was why he was trying to win the boat race.
um yeah, I don't my mind is going crazy and my lost peeps will kill me. I guess that's in the season 2 finale. There's a lot of that. Like cuz doesn't she find him at the bleachers where he was running where he met Jack and he's got to win the race around the world to prove his love or something. I don't remember. Um, but what I do remember is his whole storyline is propelled this year by that one scene in the underground Orchid Station or in the underground Looking Glass Station, where Charlie says hi to Penny. Right,
Hmm.
he does not Penny's boat thing, but Desmond hears Charlie say Penny, and he comes running before Charlie slams the door and Patchy
Hmm.
does the bomb. So his kind of he's propelled about you know not Penny's boat, but Penny knows Penny's been in touch, so now Penny is trying to get in touch somewhere with somebody.
Hmm.
Um, and getting back to like when he like goes into, we see him first in the Royal Scots Regiment in the barracks. His his drill instructor is trying to get him to explain what kind of dream he was having. He
Hmm.
goes, I was on a helicopter. And the guy goes, at least it was a military dream, which reminds me
Yeah.
of that great Graham Chapman Monty Python character. If anyone know what I'm talking about, it's all about it's got to be proper and military. So it's like, anyway, I thought that was kind of a callback to that. That's me.
Yeah. Um, the first thing I picked up on in these flashes was this episode. I could already feel that this was going to be a really great case study, if you like, of using graphic matches in like film and TV. So
Like
we'd
we talked
spoken about
about
this
on the Leftovers podcast.
on the Leftovers podcast, yeah.
Yeah,
Season one finale maybe.
yeah.
And I was explaining like graphic matches. So this has a lot of them because it's a really good way to show that Desmond is uh fluctuating between times, but he's still. It's like this. He's not a different person. It's still the same person, and that is demonstrated by this graphic match. And it's like same guy, different time.
Um, sure. Yep. Totally.
And I
What?
imagine it was a lot of fun to play with making this episode, seeing like how they could get all that stuff to line up. As a filmmaker, that must have been a lot of fun.
What really always gets me about this episode is I'm always paying attention to the heavy makeup they put on Ian Cusick's face so they can hide his 5 o'clock shadow, so they make him look like a clean shaven person in the past. But obviously, he needs a beard in the future, and that's the kind of
Mm,
weird stuff I look at. Um,
that slipped by me.
yeah,
I mean, I did notice even with that, there's such a kind of vast difference between Desmond with the beard and the long hair and the younger Desmond. It's so crazy. It does not look like. I mean, it kind of looks like the same person, but it doesn't at the same time, you know.
right on. Yeah.
And my money
Um,
would definitely be on beard and long hair Desmond for winning the
the Desmond
appearance
Power
contest.
rankings.
Yeah.
Desmond Power rankings. Um, so then he starts to freak out, and he starts to
Hmm.
freak out on the like really freak out on the helicopter, right?
Hmm.
And so now he's with these. Is it just the pilot and Saeed, just Frank and Saeed, or is there someone else in the
Um,
plane in the helicopter?
well, there's Naomi's body, but no, it's just Saeed and the pilot.
Whatever. just a dead Mancunian, right?
Who?
A dead Mancunian.
Oh,
Isn't
Dead Mancunian.
Naomi a dead Mancunian? Did I say that right?
Uh, I believe she is.
Okay, so I asked you a question about this before, and this is one of the main episodes about their their um replacing the word an F word, presumably for sodding, like every 5 seconds. It's really annoying. Um, uh,
Is that why they wrote Charlie out?
no, I think they wrote Charlie out because Charlie and the actress who played Kate, Evangeline Lilly, were married, and then they didn't get. Then they were decided not to be married. And
Wow,
I
it's
think,
funny. It's
I think I don't know. I haven't read up on it, but I think it seems to me purely conjecture that he was like, "Okay, I'll be the one to leave because I've already been in Lord of the Rings, and you're the second. You're the second on the
well,
call sheet for Lost."
she's later in the Hobbit, so
They traded.
traded.
Seemed very amicable.
It is.
Plus, he came. He well, I'll stop myself.
He came back. There's I mean, he did show up in the Hurley episode, so
Right. That's what I was
uh,
talking about. That's the only time
yeah.
he ever comes back.
There's it's funny though thinking that something so kind of beautiful and uh moving as the season 3 finale is literally possibly because of some squabble between actors. It's kind of
Um,
weird when you think about it like that. Or not squabble. I don't know. I have no idea on the scenario, but
Personal lives. Who has any idea who has any idea
mhm.
what's going on?
Yeah,
So
and
I can't.
that's not what
Yeah,
this podcast is about.
no, no, no. But our follow up podcast will be about the personal lives of all the lost actors. No. Uh. So yeah, I mean, we won't go straight up, but straight up back and forth. But there is an island. What's going on the island right now is
Um,
there's a lot of wibbly wobbly, timey wimey things going on with the helicopter in this episode.
mhm, mhm.
Um, and we get into some of that here, and we'll get into more of that as far as Faraday, his experiments, where he comes from. Like Desmond goes to Oxford, and we
Mhm.
meet the mouse Eloise. What do you think of that stuff? That Oxford stuff?
Um,
Like the brains and the timing, like
yeah.
we're we're gonna DeLorean the brain of
Mm.
of of the subject, and that's kind of seems like what's going on the island, unless of course you have something in both time frames you can hold on to a constant.
Yeah. I mean, some of that stuff in Oxford felt like it was a little bit um pushed in there in order to make the rest of the episode more dramatic and tie it together. Because a lot of it was just Faraday saying maybe this is what it is, maybe this is, and then we just sort of ran with that. But I'm willing to look over that because it gave us this episode, so you kind of have to.
Well, I want to say for sure that I think the very last scene of this episode disproves kind of what you just said. Um,
Oh, when with the
he,
Faraday's notebook where he says Desmond
yeah,
would be my constant.
yes. Um, and I think there may or may not be more on that in the future. I couldn't say.
Well,
Um,
you know, that's I would very much like to be wrong on that because if it leads to more episodes like this, then I'm all on board with that.
um, yeah, like for a lot of people, this is their favorite episode of Lost ever. It's one of my favorite episodes, but it really speaks to like what I was talking about over on 6 Years Later, Leftovers chat, which you can find on this channel, um, about the last episode of season 2 of that show being my favorite episode of the Leftovers, but my favorite episode of TV ever is
Hmm.
International Assassin. It's the same thing here. This is my favorite episode of Lost, right? For me personally, as a deep Lost fan. But if I'm introducing somebody to everything Lost could possibly be, it's season 3 finale, parts 1 and 2. Do you know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
just as the leftovers was able to pull in the hotel Kevin and stuff in that last episode,
Mm-hmm.
um, through the Looking Glass is able to pull in island stuff, flashback stuff, slamming you in the face with "we have to go back" and the flash forwards. Just everything Lost is capable of doing: the action, the science fiction, the emotion. And
Mm-hmm.
this is like almost International Assassin like, and it's like it's pure emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Like especially when we get to the end and his his pleading for her on a whim, this crazy thing that call me. I'm gonna call you in 8 years. I just need your phone number.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, the last thing I want to do is see your face. I'm gonna give you my phone. It's so crazy. I'm gonna give you this stalker my phone number.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's great. It's great. It's a great episode. I love it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. It definitely is. I don't know if it's my favorite yet, obviously, because I haven't seen the rest of the show, but it's definitely up there so far. And a lot of my favorite episodes have been Desmond centric episodes. Like Flashes Before Your Eyes, that was one of my favorite episodes previously to this. So I'm a big fan of that character, and I'm glad as well because part of me was worried uh, when we first, because Desmond, it seems, is always this character who's like, is this like fleeting presence? Like sometimes he's here, sometimes he's not, and I would always get scared that, because this is Lost and stuff can happen and weird stuff can happen, and we might not get an explanation for it. Like Desmond could just, when he runs off for the first time with his rifle into the island, that might have been it. We might not have seen him again. Um,
And we
and
did
that's
for
what
like
I was
20 episodes or something, right?
right, yeah.
Yeah.
But then he comes back and we get beautiful, glorious, bearded Desmond. So
Yeah. The Jesus of Desmond's. Uh,
yes.
bearded.
Well, how many Desmonds are
I don't know, but the beard looks good on him.
there?
Yeah. Okay. Uh,
The Desmond as well. See, this is one area of Lost I've never really looked that hard into because I have a feeling I might as well just wait until the show's over and then explore all this stuff. But obviously, the names in Lost are really significant. Like Desmond Hume, is a Scottish philosopher, really really famous. That I mean, I studied him for a couple of years when I did A level in philosophy. So let me make sure that's definitely
um, also, there like so many names are names from history. I know John Locke is a famous name.
hmm
And that's one of those things where you can click on any podcast. Also, I do have to shout out Jay and Jack and their Lost podcast because they're the podcast that I first started listening to um, when Lost was going away, and I needed to talk to someone about television. And right now, luckily, I'm lucky enough to do like a Westworld podcast with Jack from Jay and Jack on Live Westworld. So if I'm talking about Lost, I have to shout them out, and I love those
mm.
guys and listening to them.
Just a correction, actually.
But yeah,
It's David Hume, the philosopher. My philosophy teacher would be deeply embarrassed to hear me say that. I knew it was David Hume, but I didn't know if Desmond was some kind of like, maybe that was a, I don't know. But either way, it's D Hume, Scottish. The parallel is pretty clear.
um, maybe your teacher will not be so upset if he comes back and asks you to help him start cooking crystal meth. All right, so let me get deep for a second on this. Before I get to this, let's talk about what a jerk Kimi is, the boat captain guy.
Right, the
Uh,
one with the it's like a tank top t-shirt thing.
yeah,
The
yeah,
guy
yeah,
with the
that
big
guy,
arms.
tank top
Yeah.
guy. Yeah,
hmm
and I don't know how far they've gotten into him already. There's the doctor on the boat. There's George Minkowski,
hmm
who dies in this episode, who is the
hmm
first person that Naomi calls,
hmm
played by Fisher Stevens. Side note: everyone is stuck in right now due to the health crisis in the world,
hmm
and everyone is getting very excited about this Tiger King documentary on Netflix. And I watched the whole thing, and I wouldn't bring it up except one of the executive producers is Fisher Stevens, who plays George Minkowski. Also, he played the virus in the classic movie Hackers, and he was also in Short Circuit 1, and most importantly, Short Circuit Part 2,
Hmm.
which I don't know if you've seen a classic movie, but Short Circuit 2 is, it doesn't get more classic than that. Also featuring Petula Clark's Downtown, just like Lost.
Well,
Anyway, ran over.
the thing with tigers is that you can never be sure when they're gonna bite you.
Bite you in the face. Oh my god, Leftovers. Okay, good. 6 years later, Leftovers Shad on this channel. Go check it out. Um, it's a good one, buddy. Siegfried and Roy.
Hmm.
Magic. We're getting everything in here. I want to talk about the auction for a minute with you.
Yeah.
Did you listen to everything that was said at the auction?
Um, I mean, I listened to it all. I I tend to listen to what they say in TV.
I see what you did
But
there. I hear what you did there. That was that
I
was
did not. If you're asking, I did not watch it with the sound off. But no, from what I remember, it was a ship captain's like logbook, and the ship was lost or something, and nobody found the crew apart from this book.
Do you know what the name of the ship was?
The Black Rock. Oh, the
And
Black Rock. There you
oh, ding ding ding. We
ding
have a
ding ding.
winner.
Uh,
So I found that very interesting.
yeah, hang on. How did they get the book from it then?
Um, well, it was published. The contents may have not have been published and are unknown to anyone outside the family of the seller, Tovard
Hmm.
Hanzo. Does the name Hanzo mean anything to you?
Um, Hansel is.
Hanzo worked with the De Groots to bring the Dharma Initiative. The Dharma Initiative is from Hanzo Corporation. Uh, I think you can see that at the
Uh-huh.
beginning and end of all those awesome movies, all those orientation films.
Yeah,
Brought to you by the Hanzo Corporation and the De Groots. Namaste.
yeah.
Um,
That's okay. That's cool. That's the kind of thing that sometimes when I'm watching it on Amazon Prime, it has little like trivia that pops up in the overlay, which you don't see unless like you move your mouse and you see like the all the options. But it has this little like trivia sidebar, and sometimes it'll come up with stuff like that where, like for example, in one of the earlier Desmond episodes when they were bottling like wine, it was saying they bottled like 108 bottles, and then that the trivia was saying the number of wine they bottled was like the sum of Hurley's numbers and stuff. And every time something like that comes up, it makes
and
me, it kind of validates me a little bit in my because when I watch like the leftovers, for example, I'm trying to pick up stuff here and there, and I'm like going into rabbit holes that some people might say is just stupid, like there's no point. But then when it each time something like this comes up, like the number of that bottles or the Black Rock, or I mean that one's a little bit more of a strong thing, but you get this stuff all the time, and it makes me think, okay, so if Lindelof's done it before, then chances are he's not going to be stopping anytime soon. So keep an eye out for that stuff.
are you saying that I'm one of the person that tells you it's stupid and we shouldn't go down that hole?
Uh, no, you
No, okay.
very rarely say that. Maybe you said that
No,
once.
no. What I say is we this is well mined territory and it doesn't go anywhere. So let's
Okay.
move on now. But yeah, it was all invented and lost. All this stuff is lost as looking in. That's why on this thing I'm reading from, it's very important that they mention that Charles Woodmore is bidder 755. Um, and he wins the auction for £380,000. And the auction is for lot
Hmm.
2342, which is some of the lost numbers. 15, 16, 28. Right now. Right now, I'm blanking on the numbers. 4, 8, 15, 16, 23, 42 are the lost numbers, right? Those are the
Hmm.
numbers you had to key in on the computer every 108 minutes.
Hmm.
So you just mentioned 108.
Hmm.
It's 108 there.
Hmm.
So when he does that in another show and he puts in a number, people pay so much attention to the numbers.
Hmm.
Um, it's because of this. It's because of all this right here.
So 6 years later, what's that number about?
It should have been 7 years later for the leftovers chat, but we wanted
Mm.
to do it now. But 7 years is obviously
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
important in this season 3 of the leftovers we're covering on the other show 6 years later, leftovers chat, on this YouTube channel. You should check it out. So Minkowski dies because um, he tells a story about him and Brandon, and they were anchored there, and they wanted to know about the island, so they took the tender out to the island. But then
Mhm.
Brandon started acting erratically, and so they turned around. But then Brandon died, and Minkowski grew unstable because they didn't have constants. Um, so it seems very important that Desmond, because he's completely lost his mind in the 2004 freighter timeline completely,
Mhm.
and Science just trying to help him, right? Um, but yeah, then Minkowski dies, and it's kind of a bummer.
Yeah,
Um,
I thought he'd be a more major character than he was, given how often his name was used.
and I don't know where we are. And there's so much more I could say about what Lost fandom so lovingly refers to as the freighter folk, but I don't remember where we are in the timeline. I don't remember what we've seen. Is this the first time we've been on the freighter?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
But he did say they have a friend on the boat, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that?
You mean Ben said that?
Did Ben say that, or did George say you guys have a friend on this boat?
Oh, well, both.
Okay,
Because Ben has said previously that, and then also when the door gets unlocked and George says you have a friend on the boat. Yeah.
I wonder who's helping him on the boat.
Mm.
It's a good
Well,
question.
I don't. Have we seen everyone who's on the boat yet? I don't think we have.
No, like I asked if this is the first time. Like I didn't want to get too far because I know
Mm-hmm.
exactly who's on the boat. I know exactly what's going to happen on the boat. Um, there's more boat stuff to come. So, I guess we'll end that there. What'd you think of Sonia Walger? She plays Penny.
Um, what did I think of her in
Performance, yeah,
in this episode, performance
yeah.
wise? Uh,
Because she delivers it
Great
for
accent.
sure, right? Yeah.
um, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, she did a good job.
And her phone number
Uh,
is 794608893. I know that because I
Say
have
that
a
again.
tat. Her phone number is 794608893,
Uh huh.
and I know that because I have it tattooed on my shoulder.
Have you tried calling it?
No, I'm sure someone has. I'm sure someone has.
I'll just wait 8 years and
Yeah, right. So, what do you have any theories about what's going to happen or what's going on?
like in general.
Yeah,
Um, well, working from what we do know, Ben gets off the island. Say gets off the island. Jack gets off the island. Kate gets off the island. Baby Aaron gets off the island. Hurley gets off the island. And then possibly one or two other people that we don't know yet. Sorry, I don't know. So given that we know that, working backwards, at some point, those people must get on the freighter. So I'm expecting, all those people I just named sooner or later to end up on that freighter, unless they get off the island in some other way, which is possible, but doesn't seem likely given the amount of weight we've been given the freighter, and that storyline in this season, and that it just I'm sure that's where it's going to happen.
this is called my poker face.
But this is being the show it is. Who am I to guess?
You didn't know that this was the show where they created transportation technology, did you? It's gonna be crazy.
They created what?
Transportation technology. It's gonna beam me up, Scotty. They're gonna
Uh,
disappear in the light. No, what were you gonna say? I'm sorry.
Um, I'm guessing that the people who are employing, well, you know what's weird is we have people like Faraday who seem like they're on the island for the island, but at the same time they're on the island to get Ben. And I'm trying to work out if it's the same employer that's wanting them to capture Ben and investigate the island, or if that's kind of two separate people, or groups of people, or it just seems weird that the same people that would want to capture Ben would be the same people that want to investigate the island.
Yeah, and I can answer everything. So it's kind of a hard podcast, hard talking to do, actually. Um, but
And we know one of the big reveals in The Economist was that Saeed is working for Ben.
yeah,
So either
yes,
the people on the freighter are unsuccessful, or there's well, they must. I don't see how they could be successful unless I don't know. And it seems like they're back in the real world, and maybe this is the same organization that Ben is employing Saeed to help track down and eliminate, possibly.
and your answers will be revealed
Yeah,
in the due course of time.
and it's good though because when I first started watching, and I'd heard I did my level best not to read too far into reviews and discussions and whatnot, but one of the more common complaints seem to be that certain, the mystery box element where you have stuff that happens and then it never really gets explained or progresses past that. And people are so kind of vocal about that literally when I started watching it, I was expecting the whole thing to be like season one, but extrapolated over 5 seasons, where nothing ever changes because nothing gets explained. But it's been really cool to see how each season it's sort of managed to step up its game without fully revealing what's going on, but also it does explain some stuff, and not everything is left unexplained. But it's definitely exceeded my expectations in that I was like, okay, so if nothing gets explained, then surely we're just going to be on the island, and like it created for me this expectation that if nothing was going to be explained, nothing was going to change. But that's not what happened. We have had stuff explained and we have had stuff changed. There's obviously a lot of stuff still not explained, but it's definitely been more so than I was expecting. And this season is another example of that. Like them getting off the island is not anything I expected ever.
Right, and
And and in a
that's what's
way,
yeah.
still kind of don't.
But that's what's so great. That's what's so
Mm-hmm.
great about it, and it goes to places. And I say this is one of my favorite episodes, but I have no bones about it. The fifth season is by far my favorite season of the show, um, and that's a whole lot of fun. Um, and this season was really truncated by I think there was a writer strike this season. That's why there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot less episodes. Um, and I think there was a whole other plot with some other people that totally got cut. But you're gonna see some of it. Um, yeah, I mean, you got a lot of fun stuff to look forward to, but just like the things that Damon Lindelof is so good at, and um, which is these things make sense or not make sense, but you care so much about the characters, and the emotional gut punch is so overwhelming and real that it makes it worth it. And you have to be able to build these characters up into people you care about.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that was a problem I had with the spoilers. I'm going to talk about Picard for a second. It, you know, except for people that I watched for 20, 25 years on Star Trek The Next Generation, I didn't care about anybody. so that those parts were kind of a bummer about that show. But that's why when something like The Leftovers hits you so hard, it's because you care about the character so much, or something like the emotional, and I put emotional quotes, the emotional climax of Watchmen. If anybody watched that, which I know you haven't yet, but it reaches that same kind of level with me
Yeah.
that Lost does, specifically in an episode like The Constant.
Yeah, and I've always approached Lost from that character-based approach, and in part that's because I'd been warned, and I guess we'll see over time how it turns out. But I'd been warned not to get too overly. Obviously, you play along with the story, and you enjoy the mysteries and the explanations and non-explanations, and you enjoy that, but don't get. I was warned not to get attached to it, and instead it seems like there was people in two camps, and the people who didn't like how Lost turned out were the people that were too attached to the logic of the show, whereas the people who really did like how it turned out were the people that were attached to the characters. And it seemed clear to me, even though I'd been primed for that, even if I hadn't, I feel like I'm sure I would have picked up sooner or later that this is a show that is not so much about the plot, which sounds like a crazy thing to say given how nuts the plot is, but it's a show about characters, and that's what it's always been about. And it's one of the best shows I've ever seen at handling such a diverse group of characters and making us care about each one of them. And so that's what I've always approached it as, and that's why I've always enjoyed it so far. There was a few episodes maybe so, but so far I've really enjoyed it, and I hope I'll carry on to do so as long as it keeps that same character-based approach.
And and that's the same thought, with, like, I hate to mention again, The Leftovers. It's like, because there's so many episodes of Lost, you win some, you lose some. I mean, it's just the nature of television, and this is the first show of its kind that's serialized every week, 100% completely. Like, if you watch, there's few episodes of Lost where you can watch one and know what's going on from the previous episodes. So, I mean, that's the TV I like. It's the TV that has spawned just podcast recap culture as it stands right now. The things we're doing right now, it's all comes from this this show, and this is one of the better
Mm-hmm.
episodes of the show. That all that. So, you know, it's pretty cool. Did you have anything else to say about The Constant?
Um, Let me quickly consult my notes. I didn't
Okay.
make many, but let me make sure I didn't miss. No, not really. I mean, the main note I kept making over and over was like, uh, Desmond with beard greater than Desmond without beard. I'm curious though. Do you reckon there's any characters who looked better before they got to the island and had that like rugged island look come over them?
Wait, they look better. You think people look better on the island?
I think so.
This
I'm,
is a
I'm saying, are there any exceptions to that?
that they look better off the island.
Yeah, like kind of cleaned up, so to speak.
I can't answer that till after you see season 5. You don't think Jack's beard in the end of season 3 was amazing?
Yeah, well, no, that's true, but
It's not cleaned up.
that's kind of cheating, yeah. Like, I feel like that's where he would have eventually got if he'd stayed on the island. So,
I think Ana Lucia looked amazing on and off.
uh, I agree.
She
Same
changed
goes.
not at all.
Same goes for Kate. Actually, you know what? I think Kate looks better on the island. Actually,
Um,
no. How can I say that?
and Sawyer's devastatingly handsome no matter where he is, right? Say it.
Yeah,
We can't just sit here
undoubtedly.
and talk about the women. Not we can't just sit here and do that.
Have
That's not
you not been
cool.
listening? Like Desmond and Jack and
Oh, okay, so
Kevin
you're
Garvey. Looks very wrong. Sure.
so the best looking character on and off the island of all of Lost is Kevin Garvey from The Leftovers.
And I think that's where we end this podcast.
Yeah. Okay. Uh, Thanks for listening. Uh, I
Hmm.
don't know if this is ever going to see the light of day. I'm pretty sure it will because I'll put anything up. Um, but really, we're testing out a new sound system. That's why we're doing it. I want to talk about Lost. If anyone hears this or watches this and feels like they want to hear me not say anything while Benji makes some predictions so I don't ruin anything, let us know and maybe we will. Um, I'd love to watch some of season 5 with you. All right. Thank you.
Hmm. Thank you. All right.